Morning, everybody. It's week 9. We're going to get started today. So we're going to do a few things today. The first thing we're going to do is have a look at assignment 2, which I'm going to give you a fair bit of time to do. So time shouldn't be a real crunch for assignment 2. So we're going to go over that. Then we're going to kind of do a quick review of what we did last week. We're going to pick up, I'm going to create a new lesson 9 application, but copy all my files into it. So we'll kind of look at the configuration we started working on for doing authentication last week. We didn't finish it. We just kind of got our application configured. We built a register and a login page, but they don't do anything yet. So we're going to need to get those pages working with the Passport package. And then we need to look at how we take pages which right now are public and make those views private using Passport. So we'll see how long that takes. The other thing I would like to hopefully implement, which is not incredibly time consuming, is also add the ability to log in with GitHub. So we can let someone register and log in with our MongoDB, or we can let somebody with a valid GitHub account access our application. We'll try and do all that. And then you will also have a lab, which is due later this week, just a small lab. Okay. So assignment 2 is here on Blackboard. Now, in your assignments tab. So this is actually the largest part of your mark is the assignment. There's no final exam in this class. I think on the syllabus, which I probably need to update, I think it says 20%, but the assignment's actually worth 30%. Okay. So basically what you need to do is build an application with Express, MongoDB, Node, and EJS. So 2 parts, and I'm going to do this the same way we did it with assignment 1. That for next week, what I want to see is that you've started the application and created a repo on GitHub, and you need to have made at least 5 commits by next Monday at midnight. Okay, that you've gotten started, at least got an Express generator site up. Okay, it doesn't have to be a functional site, but that I can see you've started and you've been working on it. Please try to name your commits. Give them descriptive messages. Shouldn't be first commit, second commit, third commit, because again, those archives, this is going to be helpful for you if you need to go back to one of them. So try and describe what you were doing in each version that you've committed. You have a week to do that, and then you have 2 more weeks to build out the rest of the application, which is plenty of time. It's not huge in scope. Realistically, I could have given you 2 weeks for this and it would have been enough time, but you have 3. So then when you're, so for next week, all I need is a GitHub link and I want to see 5 commits. So that's 4 of the marks. And then 2 weeks after that, again on the Monday night, all you need to submit to me is a link to your live site. So you do need to host this somewhere online. And again, just a link to submit your repository link again. It's not group work. I want everybody to build their own. Originally, I thought about a group project in this class, but you guys are already building an application together for me in the other class, so there's no need to do this one. I'd like everybody to build their own application. Okay. So what I want you to build is a simple business directory. Okay, so this would just be a listing. So pick any industry, it could be bars, it could be real estate agents, it could be plumbers, a directory that basically has a business name and some information, several fields about that business, contact information, address, maybe URL, etc. So it should look something kind of similar to this. So on the Barrie Chamber of Commerce, they have a membership directory where you can choose a category and view businesses in that category here. If anybody needs investigative services. So some kind of business directory, you pick the industry, doesn't matter. It can just be for a single industry if you want.
Do you want us to populate it with actual real?
It's up to you. It's up to you. You can either make the data up or you could put real data in. My suggestion, of course, is make it look as professional as possible, because obviously you build a good application. You want to be able to say, I mean, I know some of you are using the mean stack in our other class, but you also, the more work you have, the more professional quality work you have to show, the better for it, the better. Maybe I'll fix that typo. Now, obviously, all of my code is on GitHub. You can take it and you can use it as a reference. Don't take my repository, download it, and just change it and give me my files back. Okay. I can also tell, I know my code when I know my coding style well enough to know if it's my work or yours. Okay, particularly the way I comment, the way I indent things, the way I space things, the way I name variables. I will know my file. So again, it's there as a reference. Please don't give it back to me. So you're going to make a brand new application with Express, MongoDB, Mongoose. The final version does not have to use NodeMon, but you should be using NodeMon for development. Obviously, we know that's going to save you time as opposed to stopping and starting your application every time you make a change. Okay. You use EJS for templating, root files for your application logic. We'll talk about the CSS, and your directory should be, there's two parts. There's a couple of public pages and then there are several private pages. So you'll need to use Passport for authentication. So you can use the Express generator, make a new application, give it some kind of CSS. All I ask is don't make it look like the application we're building in class. So you can either write your own style sheet, use a external CSS framework like Bootstrap if you want. If you're using Bootstrap, at least use some of the different classes or override some of the classes that are in there, so the application looks like your own. Use NodeMon. Your database configuration should be like we did last week. Rather than storing it in app.js, make a separate configuration file and store the database connection in there, like we did last week. So you need a public homepage, can just be basically a description of what your application is. There needs to be shared headers and footers. And then there should be one other public page that's basically like this one. So where any anonymous user can simply view the list of businesses in your directory, but they have no ability to add, edit, or delete. It's read only. So the public view is read only. There needs to be, so coming back, Kaylee, to your question, about the content, I would suggest you'd want at least 5 fields, 5 values for every business. You can decide what those should be. You'll need a register and a login page so I can create an account and log into your site. And then there need to be private pages so that an authenticated user can add, edit, or delete entries in the business directory. So a public user can only view them, and an authorized user can also add, edit, delete, can make changes to that collection of data. So you really only need 2 collections in your MongoDB. You need a users collection, and you're going to need a businesses collection, or companies, whatever you want to call it. Delete should include a delete confirmation. There's different ways you can do that. We did it with jQuery and JavaScript. If you want to go to a confirmation page first and say, are you sure you want to delete? It should be that delete is a 2-step process, right? In case the user accidentally clicks delete and didn't mean to. Actually, I'm going to add to this. The other thing I want you to do, this should be 1, not 2. I'm going to add one other thing. basically, you're going to have to do a little bit of independent learning, okay? You're going to have to add one piece of functionality using the mean stack that you're going to have to teach yourself and implement. Now, I'm not going to restrict what that is. I've given you some things here, some suggestions that you could do, none of which are terribly complicated, most of which you can pretty easily find how to do online through a video or an online tutorial. Okay, so these are just some suggestions, and the last one is any other feature that you would like to implement on your own. Okay, so things like, so today we'll hopefully finish passport authentication and hopefully implement GitHub authentication. So you can do authentication with other providers if you like. That would be one. You can create a JSON API, which isn't terribly difficult. It's basically built right into Node and Express. You could add file upload, so when we enter a business, you can upload a logo or a photo of that business and have it display on the main page, like wrong browser. Like here, these have got logos attached, so you could have them display. You could make it searchable. You could make your public page searchable. So there's a search box. User could enter a keyword, and your search results would get filtered by that keyword. So again, you're basically just be using a different version of the Mongoose find command than we've done. You could also relate, I guess I should say, add the categories and nest each business inside a category. That would be another possible feature. Okay, so you pick any one, or if there's some other piece of functionality you think you would rather implement, by all means you can do it. Okay, somewhere in your comments, probably in the README file you put on GitHub, actually I should add this. So the feature you choose should be listed so you should create a README file that describes your application. That way when I click it, that file is what automatically loads first on the GitHub site. So I will see in your description what feature it is, because it may not be readily apparent to me what the extra thing that you did was. So here's how we're going to mark it. So a few marks just for setting it up and configuring it. Create, read, update, and delete is the biggest part of your grade. Authentication is 8 marks that I can register, log in, and that the pages for managing the business directory are private. 4 marks for whichever of those additional features you decide to implement. So again, there are part marks. So if you attempt and the code's partly there but not complete, there are still some marks for that. You get a mark just for building that kind of welcome page, a couple marks for your CSS, a mark for code commenting. So there's 8 marks for version control. So 4 is that I've seen regular commits on GitHub in the next week. And then the other 4 are for that you've continued to commit to GitHub over weeks 2 and 3. So you're actively working on it. Okay, and then 4 marks for pushing this to the cloud. So in order, obviously, for your application to run on a cloud server, you're going to have to use a database in the cloud. So MLab is the easiest place to host your MongoDB. It's not the only option. If you want to run your MongoLab, like I think Azure has an add-on, you can do it directly in Azure, up to you. Using MLab is the easiest way to use your database in the cloud. So you probably need, at the end of the day, how many pages do we actually need? Home, register, login, and the public list of businesses. And then in the administrative end, you're going to need view the businesses, add and edit. So 7 views, basically minimum. But 7 views would meet all the requirements. I'll just re-upload this document with those changes. Who's got a question?
Is that our presentation or is that separate?
No, the presentation's completely separate. Okay. Let me just check. So this is week 9. So a plan for the course is for the next 3 weeks, we're going to play around with Angular JS. It's hard to get too deep into Angular because it's quite a big topic and it's a bit complex, but we can at least get some basic things working with Angular. So the presentations will be the last 2 weeks of class. So I think what we'll do, let me just see. In the next week or two, I'll give you the presentation assignment to do, okay? So I'm giving you 3 weeks for this. Realistically, this site shouldn't take you 3 weeks. It's not, from a scope perspective, it's not particularly large. It's really just, in effect, you guys building out your own version of what we've been building in class together. You taking that and building a similar site to our little article site that we've been building. So I've uploaded those changes. So there's a submission spot for part 1 and a submission spot for part 2 here. Other questions?
So for the part 1, we just need to like put it on to GitHub and make it for.
Yeah, get started. So you need to use the generator to create an application. And I want to see, but over the next week, that at least you've started actively working, that there are at least 5 commits on there over the first week. Okay, that's all. So only 4 of those marks will be assigned at the end of by next week. And then the other 44 will be, I'll give out once you actually submit it. Okay, so I'm having you get started and giving you a chance to get practicing on your own outside of class what we're doing in class here. Are there any other questions about the assignment? Okay. And the link here, if you want to see, the link is in the document. If you want to see the Barrie Chamber of Commerce. So again, it's just right under. Where is it? So under the members area is where you can see the directory. So they also have it filtered by category. This is one of the things I would give you bonus marks for doing. If you had different businesses in a few different categories, that would be something you could do as your bonus feature. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I want to create a new application for today. And I'm going to copy in my files from last week so we can get it running. So I'm going to open a command prompt. You can go ahead and set up a lesson 9. You can set up a new application, or you can just keep working with your files from last week. Doesn't matter. My files are on GitHub if you need them, but they do have my database connection, which you would need to change to your own connection. I'm going to use the generator to create a new application. I'll use NPM. And now I want to install all the packages that I had last week. These are on Blackboard from last week. They're in the lesson 8 folder. So I want these 5: Passport, Passport Local, Passport Local Mongoose, Express Session, and Connect Flash. I can actually install them all in one line if I want. Just shrink this down for a minute. So if I just put a space after each package name, I can install them all in one line. Because the package names can't have spaces in them. So this should install all 5 of these in my node modules. So now I'm going to go into my lesson 8 folder, and I'm going to grab a bunch of stuff. I'm going to take my config, my models, my public, because it has my JavaScript, my little JavaScript for deleting, routes, views, app. May as well take my proc file in case I want to put on Heroku. I'm going to take most of this stuff. Everything in blue, I'm actually going to copy into lesson 9 and overwrite. So I'll leave the bin, node modules, package.json, and server. I'm going to copy all of those files. And I'll overwrite everything here. And now I'll open this project up in my code editor. So we won't make any changes yet. We'll kind of look at what we did last week first. So the first thing I'll open is package.json. Okay, it's actually says lesson 9. I just want to use nodemon here. So on my start scripts on line 6, I'll just make sure we're going to use the nodemon process to start our application rather than node. I'll update the README file later. I'll put the comments in at the end of class, depending on how much we actually, so I'll describe whatever features we managed to get implemented today. Okay, so we can close that up. So here's some of the stuff we did. We added these references into app.js last week. So passport to handle authentication, express session, pretty self-explanatory, managing users, creating and managing user sessions, connect flash is so that we can generate messages on one page, store them in the session object, and then display them on another page. So we'll use this, for example, to display an invalid login message if we happen to get one of those. And then passport local, anybody remember what passport local does? What, because where did we store things last week? Right. Yeah, right, in our database, I actually disabled my live. So passport local simply means that the users are stored in a database, that they're not stored, that we're not using some kind of OAuth or third-party provider. We have our own data store. So you're right though, Brandon, that could well be a local database, but it could also be a remote database. We created this auth controller in the roots folder. Which right now just looks like any other root file. It's really only doing on what did we set this up to do last week? It's not really doing any processing. It's not talking to the database yet. What's going on here? All we're doing is mapping URLs for register and login. So if the user clicks the register or login link, we're loading the appropriate view and giving it a page title. So we're displaying the form, but we're not doing anything yet. That form, there's no processing to it. So we set that up. We enabled Flash for showing messages, and we initialized a session. And this secret doesn't matter. I can keep it as lesson 8. It's just a random string that's used for helping to encrypt the session IDs. And then we added this stuff here. So we wanted to initialize passport and have it use sessions. So we need that for session support. We started building out this file. So we already had an article model. We also built an account model. So these models are fairly similar. Both of them use Mongoose, and each one we defined a schema, what this collection will look like in our database, and we exported it by making it public. So we did pretty much the same thing, except we've also used this package, Passport Local Mongoose, because this isn't just any old model, it's a passport model for user management. So we're gonna let Passport Local Mongoose do most of the plumbing under the hood for us. And then we made it public and we called this account with a capital A. So we've told Passport, here's the model to use for doing the database interaction with our MongoDB. Use the account model. And serialize and deserialize. Serialize user basically just means allows us to store the user in a session. Deserialize allows us to read who the user is back out of the session. So it's just a simple set and get, read and write methods. So we have the session, we have our user, we're storing information about the user in the session, and then we need to be able to read it out to identify who is this user. And then we also mapped paths. So when we got requests at localhost/auth, we knew that the root handlers were in this file. So we can't actually log in yet, but if we get our application running, we can at least load the register and login pages. They just don't work yet. They're kind of like dummy forms. So that was all the setup. And then we built an auth subfolder in views where we created two simple forms, a login and register that were almost identical. The register just had a password confirmation box as well. So I should be able to run my application. Now, again, my database, I'm not using my local host, so I don't need to start MongoDB anymore. I'm going to be connected to my database on MLab instead. So if in your connection, you're still using your local connection string, that's fine. But before you can run your application, you need to open a second command prompt, browse into your MongoDB folder, and run the MongoD command to get your local database running. And we've done this several times now, so probably you guys know how to do this. So I can skip that step because I'm just going to connect to my remote database, it's already live. If I try to start my app, hopefully it will run. I forgot to install Mongoose because that wasn't on my list from last week. Need to install Mongoose.
Hey, Reg.
Yep.
I'm using my files from last week and I'm getting in authentication strategies must have a name.
Authentication strategies. Hang on, let me see if I get mine right. I may get the same error. I'm just going to check first of all that that I have all of the right packages installed now. So if I go into node modules from last week and node modules from this week, yeah, I think I have all the correct packages now, but I may well get the same error. So let me try it again and see. You get it when you try to load it, or you're getting it here right away?
Right away.
Okay.
I get the same error.
All right. Let me just see if it runs, and then we'll try to figure that out. Right. So we built these two links so I could register, which won't do anything, or I could log in, which gives me 404 because it's doing a post, and we have no post handler yet for this. All right, so let's go back and pause. Can you read me again what it's saying?
Authentication strategies must have a name.
Authentication strategies must have a name.
Yeah, this is it's throwing it whenever I call the model. So which line is that?
So it's probably crashing on this line. Check your line number on your.
It's actually the one above that line where it's crashing at.
It's crashing here. Okay, do you have this line down at the bottom? Are you exporting it, making it public?
Yeah. Oh. First.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah, here, let me explain why. You said you had lowercase here?
I know it's still crashing.
Mine is-
Yeah, but I did have a lowercase there.
Okay, so we're creating a local variable here. That is what's represented here. Okay. And this is the name we're using to make it public. So the rest of our application will refer to it as account with a capital A.
Okay, it's still throwing the same error though. Save.
And you do have this line up at the top about the schema. I'll leave this up for a minute. See if you can, well, the first thing to check is whether there are any differences here.
My error says it's coming from the node modules.
Yeah, because it's trying to use Passport and something's not configured. So it's throwing the error in there because something's missing in the code we need to add. So it may not be this file, but this is the first place to check. Okay, you guys are both shaking your heads. You're pretty confident that this file's accurate. Okay. Let's check your node modules folder. Do we have Mongoose, Passport, Passport Local, and Passport Local Mongoose? So you've got those 4 modules. Okay, good. On this line, notice at the end, on all the others, we just require the package. But on this one, we're actually requiring the dot strategy. Got that part? It's highlighted in blue. So you have all of these packages here. Okay. All right. I'll come and have a look at it. We'll have a break in shortly, so I'll have a look at it then. So hopefully you can at least load your application from last week and display your register and login pages. So we created links on the bottom and our index page. So we want to be able to at least display these things. Another thing to check, sorry, Kaylee, Brandon, one other thing to make sure. These are function calls. So there are brackets here when you call initialize. Make sure you've got those as well. So passport's being initialized. So right now I haven't made any changes from my application from last week. This is exactly how we left it and how it's been on GitHub for the past week. So the first thing we need to do today, the first change we need to make is we need to write the post handler for our register page. We're not going to be able to log, we have to deal with registration first. You can't log in if we haven't created an account, obviously. So where will we need to go to make that change? Which file are we going to use to handle a post request on our register page? It's one of the files that's open here. You got it. So that's our controller or our root file for any authentication-based URLs. Now we do need to add a few packages here. So we need to add so there's 3 things we need. The first thing we need to do is we're going to need to use Passport here, because Passport's going to do most of the work in terms of registering and logging in users. So we're going to need to require that package. If we look at our articles router, we're also going to need these 2. Sorry, we're going to need Mongoose, but rather than our article model, we're going to need a reference to our account model as well. So any root file that's going to talk to the database is going to need Mongoose. We want to link to our account. That should be dot. So we'll use this account model for creating a new user. So we've got a get handler already. Now let's set up a post handler. With our typical callback. So we don't just want to display the blank form. The application needs to know what to do when the form's posted. So most of the code that goes in here into this post handler is on Blackboard in the lesson 9 folder. So the first item on there let's go back. So I want you to copy, paste into the root handler, and see if you can fill in the 5 blanks that are here. Whoops, actually, sorry, I have to change one thing. One page is wrong. Don't copy it yet. This should not be admin, it should be articles. But once a user is logged in successfully, we're going to take them to the main articles page. So just grab that and see if you're able to complete it, which should sign up a user and take them to the articles page. Should be. And you just want to add this in blue. I missed this here, sorry. So on line 20, that auth / should be in front. Sure.
What is the difference it's like in your account variable there? It's like you have the dot dot slash. How's that different from just a single dot?
Well, let's look at our. Let's look here. So in app, that's a good question. We would think, so in app, which is in the root, I'm trying to.
Because if it does throw errors for you, mess it up.
I know. You would think because this is in the root, we shouldn't even need this. Right? We should just be able to go roots and then that goes in one directory. It's almost like the actual virtual root of the file is not, of the application, is not really where it appears to be. I'm not explaining it very well. I have to think of a better answer for your question, Brandon. I don't have a clear answer for you. I know what you're saying, and it is a bit confusing that it is that way. But basically, because we're in a subfolder, it's dot dot just to get out of that subfolder. It's not a single dot. 2 dots takes us out of roots and then into models. So it's going up one directory and then into another directory on the same level. Okay. In app.js, we're not inside of a subdirectory, so we don't have 2 because we don't need to go outside. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay, so what values need to go in here? We want to use our account model. We want to use our form values. And we want to, so what would be the first thing? So we've got account. So you'll notice it recognizes this account schema that I created with username and password. Yeah, so what would be here?
The account again.
Yeah, so what we want is to create a new account. So we're using our model. We're creating a new account. We haven't written a register function because that's baked right into Passport. We've made an account model, and this account.plugin, that basically makes this model of type Passport local mongoose. So we can use the built-in Passport functions. What would go here? You got it. So we use this already in our adding article, right? We use request.body for parsing the form fields. That's the equivalent of our $_post collection in PHP. So what about this one? Yeah, it'll be the same thing. So our username field in the request body, that's our first text box, and our password field from our request body. So we're doing a number of things all at once. Right? When we did this in PHP, we kind of broke this up into multiple lines of code. First, we identified the form values and assigned them to variables. Here, we're doing this all at once. Create a new account, populate the username from the form, and then call Passport's built-in function called register. One of the other neat things about register is it will also notice we haven't done anything with the password, right? The password is entered in plain text. What do you suppose register will do with that password automatically? Yeah, it'll hash it for us automatically. So we don't have to do that ourselves. When we use PHP, we had to manually take the plain text value, hash it, and send a hashed value. This register function does it automatically. If we get an error, what should we do? Vadim? Yep, let's render. So let's display registration page again if it didn't work. If it did work, we'll now call the login method and we will pass in the new user account that got created. So we don't actually, once a user registers, they're automatically logged in this way. They don't have to then go in and put in the same credentials they just gave us. We're logging them in immediately as soon as they sign up. We don't have to do this. We could take them to the login page and make them log in. So what should we here? We're just going to do an auto login as soon as they sign up. Yeah, so we'll just use a redirect. So take the form values, create a new account object, call the register method that's built into password, into passport, and let's determine whether we got an error or whether the account worked. So I'm going to try this, and then I want to look in my MLab database and see whether I got a new account. Notice with the articles, we actually created the articles collection by inserting them with a Mongo script. Here, we're not doing that. So at the moment, you probably, if you log into your MLab database, you're only going to see an articles collection. You won't see an accounts collection. So here's my database I'm connecting to. So notice I only have one collection. All I have is articles. There is no predefined space to store user accounts. If our passport register function works properly, it will build the collection and assign it an automatic ID. We'll try it out and we'll see what happens. So if I want to register, I'm not encouraged by that. My app hasn't crashed. That's good.
Mine's stored in the database, but it's just like continuously refreshing like that.
Okay. Whoops. The problem is I have return. That needs to come out, I think. So it did store it, but my view, I think, is never going to load. I'll just refresh. Yeah, now I have an account. So notice, whatever we call our model, that's what the collection name is in the database. Call my model account. So it's my table, my collection name is called accounts, all lowercase and plural. And I have, so not only is my password hashed, which is great, it's also salted. So rather than using the same hash every time, it applies a salt value as well, which makes it even more difficult to get to compromise. So I get assigned an object ID. There's my salt and hash values, and there's my username of Rich. So yeah, this should be, rather than return res.render, that return function should come out. I'll just try it again. I'll create a second user, and now I should get taken. Actually, let me think about this. No, there's still something strange here, because we didn't get an error, did we? Okay, I'll have to figure out why we didn't get our redirection, yet we didn't get an error. Oh, we did get a 500 error. 500 response. Okay, so we'll have to deal with our redirection. That isn't quite working, but my account is working. Oh, here's why. It did work, but title is not defined because our header expects a page title, and I didn't supply it. Here we gave it a title. So I missed this piece. So I restarted. I'm going to try and create one more account, and then we will take a break. This Boucher needs coffee, apparently. We'll try that one more time. So I'll try to create a second account. We'll see if this makes a difference. I'm not sure it did. So the account should be created, but I'll have to figure out why our redirection isn't working. So now I have 2 documents. So I can sign up anyway, which is a start. So we will have to tweak something in here. So
Because you have the redirect and the outs.
well, it should. I'm thinking it. I want it to either show me the register view, or redirect, or log in and then redirect. The other thing we could try to do is not automatically log the user in. We could try to redirect. It may be that this part's failing. It's spinning while it's trying to log in. We'll take a pause here. We'll take a break. We'll figure that part out. As long as the main important thing is that we can get the account created, and then we can handle the login. Okay, so we're probably gonna have to modify something a little bit in here for that to work. I'll stop my stream.